On a morning so unremarkable that no one could have foreseen the tempest brewing beneath the surface, a quiet suburban neighborhood complete with manicured lawns and cheerful mailboxes became the unlikely stage for a bizarre and heated conflict. Everything appeared serene at first glance, but a single spark of hostility was about to unravel the calm. That spark came from one resident, armed with an arsenal of rules and a self-righteous fury she wielded like a weapon. What she didn't anticipate was crossing paths with a brilliant doctor and the unwavering ally who would rise to his defense. Once the tension ignited, there was no turning back. Dr. Michael Carter prided himself on one thing above all: saving lives. By day, he worked as a skilled surgeon at Ridge VYEW Hospital, guiding patients through crises with steady hands and a compassionate heart. Outside those walls, he sought the simple comfort of suburban life. That's why he and his wife, Emily, settled into a charming neighborhood an hour from the city, with its tree-lined streets, peaceful walking trails, and a community that promised respite from his demanding career. It seemed perfect until it wasn't. The trouble began subtly. One day, a sticky note appeared on Dr. Carter's door, scolding him for placing his trash bin 3 inches beyond some invisible curb line. He brushed it off as petty nonsense. Another time, a note criticized his mailbox for not matching the neighborhood's approved shade of off-white. He sighed, certain these trivial gripes would fade. After all, who had time to fuss over such details when lives hung in the balance daily? He and Emily chuckled about the absurdity, wondering who could be so fixated on minutiae. But the notes grew sharper, more insistent, and it stung to think his hard-earned accomplishments could be overshadowed by a neighbor's obsession. Word soon spread about the culprit, Linda Grayson, the self-proclaimed guardian of the Homeowners Association, HOA. Known for prowling the streets with a tape measure in hand, she enforced her rulebook with unrelenting zeal. One crisp Tuesday morning, Dr. Carter, bleary-eyed from a double shift, raced to grab a coffee before work. The Starbucks line crawled, and every tick of the clock heightened his anxiety. Sipping his drink in the car, he didn't notice a white SUV trailing him until the third traffic light, where the driver Linda gestured wildly in his rear VYEW mirror. Her lips moved furiously, though he couldn't hear her words. A prickle of unease crept up his neck. Why was she following him? Shaking it off, he hurried into Ridge VYEU's parking lot, determined to focus on the day's open-heart surgery. Linda's odd behavior lingered like a dark cloud, but he pushed it aside until his phone buzzed after the procedure. Emily's texts were frantic. She's pounding on the door, yelling about a petition to kick us out. Dr. Carter's pulse raced. Linda had accused them of breaking non-existent landscaping rules and fabricated parking violations, threatening to strip them of their home unless they complied. He called Emily, her voice trembling as she recounted the encounter. Promising to handle it calmly, he masked the anger simmering beneath his composure. This wasn't a community, it was a fiefdom, and Linda was no queen. That evening, Dr. Carter came home to find his lawn dotted with signs: violation, HOA rule broken. The accusations were laughable. Parked in his driveway as always. Peeling the signs from the grass, he noticed neighbors peering out, some concerned, others curious. Then Linda marched up, phone in hand like a weapon. "I've warned you repeatedly," she snapped, her tone dripping with disdain, "but you people think rules don't apply." Dr. Carter, keeping his cool, insisted they'd followed every regulation. "If you've got a real issue, file it properly. Harassing us won't stand." Linda's eyes narrowed. "We'll see about that," she hissed, her words carrying a venom that felt personal, too deep for mere HOA disputes. Over the next few days, Dr. Carter tried to focus on his patients, but Linda loomed in his thoughts. Neighbors whispered she'd been calling around, labeling certain residents' problems to be dealt with. One claimed she'd muttered that Dr. Carter didn't belong in her neighborhood. He'd faced bias before, grueling years pro-VYing himself in medicine, and refused to let her rattle him. But at home, Emily grew tense. More notes arrived. "We don't want troublemakers. Obey or else." One night, he found her crying, worn down by the ordeal. That was it. He dug into the HOA's rules, learning Linda had a history of bullying newcomers into submission. Most caved out of exhaustion. Dr. Carter wouldn't. He vowed to fight for his family and every neighbor under her thumb. The tipping point came at a community meeting in the neighborhood clubhouse. Dr. Carter arrived armed with EVY Denke to debunk Linda's lies, hoping a public airing would end the nonsense. The room buzzed with tension. Linda, at the front, launched into a rant about standards, singling him out with venomous accusations, speeding, neglecting his yard, all baseless. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Standing calmly, Dr. Carter dismantled her claims with facts, his voice steady. The mood shifted. Her support wavered. Desperate, Linda sneered about his upbringing, a thinly veiled jab that silenced the room. I'm a surgeon at Ridge YEW, he said firmly. Your hate won't stand. She stormed out, humiliated, vying Dr. Carter relieved, unaware her defeat would fuel something darker. Within a day, an official HOA letter arrived, threatening formal review YEW of their property. Furious, Dr. Carter learned Linda had stacked the board with her cronies. He enlisted a friend, Alex, a paralegal skilled in HOA disputes, to document her harassment. The notes, fake photos, lawn signs, neighbor testimonies. A chilling pattern emerged. Linda had driven out other minority families before a Hispanic veteran, a Nigerian single mom, through relentless targeting. Determined to expose her, Dr. Carter prepared for the next board meeting, bracing for her retaliation. Days later, he returned home from a grueling shift to find Emily's SUV window shattered, glass strewn across the driveway. She'd heard the crash and seen a figure flee. Police filed a report, but with no proof tying Linda, Dr. Carter's dread deepened. Then, a pre-dawn voicemail from a block number hissed, "Back off or you'll regret it." His blood ran cold. Their dream home felt like a war zone. Refusing to cower, he escalated his fight, contacting Ridge VYEU's community relations team. The hospital's CEO, Patricia Haisa, no-nonsense leader, heard his story, from petty notes to vandalism, and vowed support. "No one on my staff will feel unsafe," she declared, offering legal backing. With her in his corner, Dr. Carter felt fortified, though he feared Linda's next move. That night, neighbors spotted Linda pacing the street, frantic. She left Dr. Carter voicemails, her tone shifting from rage to desperation. "Settle this quietly." Emily urged him to ignore her, but he saw a chance. He arranged a public meeting at the park, hoping to catch her admitting guilt. There, Linda, disheveled, accused him of sicking big shots on her. "Drop it, and I'll waive the fines," she pleaded. He refused. Her mask slipped. "I'll make your life hell," she spat, vying a folder of stalker-like photos into his hands at work, with Emily, marked up menacingly. "I've got friends," she whispered. "I'll ruin you." Stunned, he tossed the folder back, warning her of legal consequences. As she shrieked, a jogger filmed it all. That jogger, Tom, later offered Dr. Carter the damning evidence of Linda's threats. With Alex, he planned to present it to the HOA board and Patricia. An emergency meeting was called, the air thick with anticipation. Linda fidgeted as Dr. Carter, Emily, and Patricia with a hospital lawyer entered. Alex laid out the case: harassment, vandalism, discrimination. The video played Linda's snarls echoing, followed by Patricia's stern pledge of legal action. The board, rattled, rescinded all violations. Neighbors turned on Linda, admitting her coercion. The police chief, present, detained her for questioning as she screamed denials. Her reign collapsed. Weeks later, Linda faced charges of harassment, vandalism, hate crimes, and was ousted from the HOA. The neighborhood healed, gratitude replacing fear. Dr. Carter resumed his work at Ridge YEW, lighter, knowing justice had prevailed. Patricia praised his resilience, promising unwavering support. Linda's tyranny crumbled, a cautionary tale of prejudice undone by courageous story of a good doctor reclaiming peace, proving that standing tall can free a community from darkness.